Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanatha Gange. Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanatha Gange. Hey Annie, how you doing? Happy Eclipse Day. Hope you're doing well. Hope your Panchakarma went well. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, hi, hi. Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanatha Gange. Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanatha Gange. Kashi Vishwanatha Gange. Kashi Vishwanatha Gange. Hara Hara Mahadeva Shambho Kashi Vishwanatha Gange. Yay! We made it. That eclipse bubble has popped. We are on the other side. You're welcome, Annie. I'm glad it's been helpful. Yeah, it's there's a lot going on out there, isn't there? And the last 3 days have been intense. I've been hearing from a lot of you that it's subtle and it's not, right? I can see the tendency in myself to just go about life as if everything's normal, or as normal as I can make it, and like, oh yeah, it's sure that I know there's an eclipse happening, but taking out the trash, and the owner of the property where I'm staying is taking his daughter to a dance class or something, and it's like, it's Monday afternoon, right? Here in Portugal, it's Monday, it's 5:00, and the slightest bit of tuning in for me makes so much difference, and it's so helpful to know that this is what's happening, because otherwise I would have been very concerned about myself the last couple days and not knowing what's happening. Am I okay? Why isn't my brain working? But just knowing that, we're in the shadow of this eclipse. It is aligned with the center of the galaxy, the Gandanta degrees of Scorpio, which is like right in between Scorpio and Sagittarius, basically the most transformative zone of the zodiac. And specifically this solar eclipse is it's a great opportunity to go deep to the depths, the bottom of the psyche, right? Bottom of the ocean of the psyche. And when the sun, the source of all light and heat on the planet and in the solar system, gets blotted out, right? And it's a total solar eclipse. Hey Garrett, good to see you, buddy. We can think of it like a reset signal. When the internet stops working, you have to turn off the router and turn it back on again. And as it's coming back on, the light is sort of blinking, 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 and then it gets solid again, and that's when you should have interwebs again. We can think of the eclipse kind of like that, right? Where the sun is normally a very solid signal, right? The sun and moon, moon a little bit on and off, isn't it? But the sun is a very solid signal. Sturdy, consistent is one of the primary qualities of solar beings, is consistency. The sun just shines. Even when the earth turns its back, the sun is shining. However, in this moment, the sun was completely blotted out. And it's like this little blink, and so there is this sort of reset signal. And I'm very curious to know what you all are experiencing out there. But what I found is that the last 3 days I've been in sort of a fog, and it's been a little chaotic and kind of woozy, and closest experience I have for it is in the realm of psychedelics, where it's the sort of thing where, like, again, very curious about all your experiences, but sometimes we're, in the middle of an experience and like looking at your phone is just not an option. It's like, no, that needs to go away. We're going to set that over and do something different. And that's sort of like, I wrote this blog that I'll read from a little bit, and edit, like I was just like barely pulling it together and just barely getting out. It's just editing was completely out of the question. It's like, this is just going to be what it is. So, but as we've approached totality in the last hour or so, it was about 55 minutes ago. And on the other side, and even like earlier today, moving out to, I felt the bubble start to pop, right? And this is the quality of eclipses. So as we approach the eclipse, it's pressure building. The balloon is getting filled up. And then after the totality, it's a balloon that pops. And it's as if you have that popping balloon right above some, like a still pond. And so the intensity pops and sort of releases this burst of energy that then sends ripples through the pond of time, right? And so what we see studying the historical patterns of eclipses is that they actually have impacts in all directions of time, right? One of my teachers, Freedom Cole, was one of the few people to successfully predict Trump winning the presidency in 2016, because he was looking at the Great American Eclipse of 2017. Remember that one that cut straight across the country? He was looking at that eclipse and seeing how it lined up with Trump and the events that it suggested. And it's like, well, that eclipse, like, how are we going to get to the events that eclipse forebodes if Trump is not the winner? And there were a bunch of alignments. Trump was born right on an eclipse in Leo, and he's an eclipsed being, and we see it. He eclipses everyone around him, right? He steals the attention away. Everybody else's light, the way that everybody else shines out, gets eclipsed by the way Trump behaves, right? So, the impacts of these very particular moments in time, right? The reset signal that is especially a total solar eclipse ripples out through space and time in every direction, forwards, backwards. Pretty sure there's a sideways somewhere in there, but so I want to look through this blog, the grand finale of 2020. There's a lot happening this month. This eclipse cycle, right? There was a lunar eclipse on the night of the 29th of November, about 2 weeks ago. So eclipses always come in pairs, right? And they always come on a full moon or a new moon, right? So sometimes social media fanatics will say, it's a full moon and a lunar eclipse. Wild. Well, a lunar eclipse can only happen on a full moon, and a solar eclipse can only happen on the new moon. So that's part of the definition of the event, and they come in pairs, right? And 2020 has been unique. Usually there are 4 eclipses in a year. This year we've had 5. It was a little bit funky. So this last month of 2020 is interesting, and there's a lot happening. So this eclipse is a big part of it. And so this solar eclipse joined Ketu, right? Rahu and Ketu are the north and south nodes of the moon, and they are the shadow planets. When the sun is blotted out by a shadow, in this case, it was Ketu, right? And and they don't have a physical reality in space, but it's, once every 6 months where they catch up with the sun or moon, that they come into being, and these shadows get to express themselves, and for a moment the shadow is winning, right? The forces of darkness overcome the luminaries, and so that's what we're experiencing right now. Have you noticed? And so Rahu is the north node, sort of the leading edge of karma, sort of pushing us forward into new territory. Ketu, on the other hand, is more like past life, where we're coming from karmically, and is more like Rahu's more about worldly things in a lot of ways, like activity, experience. Ketu is definitely more on the spiritual realm, the esoteric, metaphysical, abstract sort of thing. So this was a solar eclipse hey Kristen, good to see you. This was a solar eclipse joined Ketu. And so this is indicative of inner work. Solar eclipses tend to be about inner work. Like the sun has to do with our prana, the way that we shine out into the world. And so when that gets eclipsed, it becomes like, okay, well, let's reflect upon that. What's happening internally, and who am I? Whereas lunar eclipses tend to be more about like what's happening out in the world. It's about manifesting in the world. Hey, Brother John, good to see you. Did you feel that eclipse just now, about an hour ago? Did you notice anything? If y'all like want to type in the comments, like tell me what you're doing, tell me what is happening. Very curious to know what you all are feeling, because again, I will talk about sort of the technical components of this for as long as you like, but I'm very curious to know what is going on in the real world out there. Hey Sierra, how's it going? Okay, so lunar eclipses tend to be about manifesting in the world. Like what do we need to do externally or internally in order to change the outer world? And solar eclipses tend to be about what do we need to do internally to influence the outer world, or work on our connection with ourself. Kristen is feeling light and ethereal. Lovely. Yeah. And Sierra's deep in this eclipse. Hey Kelsey, welcome. So okay, we're talking about the 4 types of eclipses, right? So, and there's this graph. I wrote a blog. It's on my website, vedadave.com/library. It is the grand finale. Hey Benjo, ¿cómo estamos? I was trying to edit and upload a tarot card reading. Nothing was working. YouTube was down. Premiere Pro wouldn't open. Okay, let it go. Yeah, there's a certain point with, especially with these technology issues, where it's like, am I being told something? Is this and always this question, like, am I meant to persevere? Is this an obstacle that I ought to like overcome and show my perseverance? Or is it like, oh, I'm being shown a message and I should take a step back, a step to the side, take a different path? Okay. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so there's a blog post on my website called The Grand Finale of 2020, and part of it is transmitting the teaching from my teacher Freedom, who describes the 4 types of eclipses from the Vedic perspective. And so we have a solar and lunar eclipse, right? There's 2 categories. And we have Rahu and Ketu, the north and south node of the moon. And so these can combine in 4 different ways. So on a lunar eclipse is generally about manifesting out in the world. Like, how do we change the external world? And with Rahu, it's about doing external things to change the external world. And with Ketu, it's about doing internal things to change the external world. Right, so a lunar eclipse joined Ketu is, what do I need to work on internally to shift the outer circumstances of the world? So one example would be this social justice work that's been a huge theme this year. It's like, I need to really dig into my own psyche, my own patterning, the ways in which racist patriarchy is encoded into my awareness and my consciousness without me even knowing it. So I need to do that internal work in order to help the external world shift. Whereas a lunar eclipse with Rahu is more about like, let's actually go out into the streets. It's external actions to shift the external world. Okay, that makes sense? With solar eclipse, it tends to be more about internal work. The sun is associated with the soul, right? It is the spark of divinity that lives through and in us. So when that gets eclipsed, it's this moment of reflection. It's that light goes out and it's like, ooh, well, who are we really? So it's more about this inner work. And when the sun is joined Rahu, it's inner work to make the outer world a better place, right? But when it's joined Ketu, like this eclipse today it's inner work for inner connection. It's the depths of the psyche. It's all internal. It's what do I need to learn about myself so that I can evolve and become more of who I am. So that's the general energy of this eclipse is all internal. All like how far in can you go? How connected with yourself can you become? And the particular placement of this eclipse was at 28 degrees of sidereal Scorpio. So this is what we call a Gandanta point. Within a couple degrees on either side of the edge of Scorpio as it moves into Sagittarius is a Gandanta point where a water sign and a fire sign meet, and the nakshatras and there's like a clear joint. It's called a sandhi point where two signs meet. Where in all but two other places in the zodiac where for example, like Virgo becomes Libra, there is a nakshatra that links those two. Right, there's the more distant stars that link those two, that sort of create a path from one to the next. Whereas between Scorpio and Sagittarius, there's just a hard boundary, and it's a knot, or it's a joint, right? And it's in that joint where we look in that direction that we see the center of the galaxy. So everything. So our little solar system is sort of out on the outer wing of the Milky Way. And when we look in that direction, where this eclipse just was, we're looking straight at the center of the galaxy. And so if you think of we're in this whirlpool of a galaxy, and everything that, this is the eye of the storm was where we're looking at when we look in this direction. So generally considered to be the most transformative zone. It's really where, Scorpio has to do with the occult, with unseen powers. It's surprising losses. It's really where we learn about impermanence and without a doubt know that, like all the things in my life are going to change. The people I love are going to go away one way or the other. The possessions that define my existence are going to dissolve, change, break, get lost. Who I think I am is constantly changing. And so it's this, Scorpio gives us this pretty shocking awareness of impermanence. And that awareness can be very destabilizing. But what it does is it inspires us to connect to higher teachings. So in this swirl of impermanence, what is capital T true? What is lasting? What is the field within which all this transformation takes place? And that's what Sagittarius wants to connect us to. So it's really this transition from the material, social space of life, sort of like, horizontal plane, like, hey, like life, human life is what it's all about, to like, actually, there's more than that, and get yourself connected to some higher teachings. So this is that zone of the zodiac. And the two nakshatras, Jyeshta is the nakshatra where this eclipse took place. And just to review, a nakshatra is a 13-degree sliver of the sky, 13 degrees, 20 minutes. And they are the more distant stars, right? So if we think of the zodiac as a circle around Earth, the familiar stars of the 12 signs of the zodiac, there's another concentric circle outside of that composed of 27 or 28, depending how you count, nakshatras. So these are these 13-degree little slivers of the sky. So Jeshta is the finely tuned location where this eclipse took place. And Jeshta, that word means the eldest. And it has to do with like the eldest sibling, specifically the eldest daughter. And it has the eldest daughter. There's a really there's a whole study around personalities based on birth order, and the eldest daughter. There's a book, The Eldest Daughter Effect, and there's very unique qualities, and they tend to be these amazing people in the world who take responsibility. They are nurturing, they are responsible, they feel this capacity to take care of others and this need to, it's a lot of responsibility, right? They take on responsibility to care for others and for society. And it can also have this quality of, it can be a little bit overbearing, right? It's like, hey, that's actually not your job. That's actually, and there can be this like, I know better quality to it. I don't think I want that up there. That's better. Let's put that candle here. Yeah, that's nice. How about that? And yeah, so it just has this very like, it can be very strict and be overbearing and like, I know what to do. I know what's right, and so follow me. But it's also this very beautiful energy of like, it has the quality of a queen, and it's like the preferred, the eldest, the senior most, and you want to go to the queen for good advice, right? The king can make things happen, but the queen has really good advice. So that's where this eclipse took place. And the next one, you go from this eldest, senior most, like really senior quality who knows better. And it's one thing to be like a know-it-all and like, well, I know better, and that's not fun. But really like it gets complicated when you actually do know better. And our Pitta our Pitta friends know all about this, where it's like, well, it's not that I think I'm right all the time. It's just like I'm usually right. And it's hard, like when you're right, it's like, being right all the time is not always the right thing to be, if that makes sense. And so we go from that at the end of Scorpio, and there's this knot, there's this joint to cross. And on the other side of that is Mula Nakshatra, the root, which has the quality of uprooting. It's like, oh, you think you know things? You think you got this right? Let's take the ground out from under you. And so this is this zone, and we're right on the cusp between these two things with this eclipse. So again, this is like deep internal work, right on the cusp between like, I know things versus like the ground is crumbling beneath me. And man, I've been feeling that. Is that true for you? Like this balance, but in some ways I feel more expert than ever. And in other ways I have no idea what I'm doing, right? And everything is changing, and it's really uncertain. So Scorpio really invites us into the depths of the psyche. And this moment in time is a tremendous opportunity to be exploring the shadow self, doing shadow work, integrating exiled parts, the aspects of yourself that were no longer welcome at a certain point, or said like, I don't know what to do with you, go here, disappear. Kelsey, listening to inner discernment. Yeah, absolutely. Listening to the different voices. In my meditations this week, I've been specifically just getting really quiet and then listening for the voices. And this is not about schizophrenia, right? This is not about channeling, vibratory beings or whatever, right? These are internal parts. These are internal voices that are quite familiar to me. if I stop and listen to them, and that they have names, they have personalities, and they have motivations. And so by listening to them, I can get to know them and understand who they are, and then negotiate, right? I hear you wanting, another bite of chocolate, but, stomach self doesn't need that right now. And so that's the work that we're being invited into, and is happening, whether you like it or not, isn't it? So yeah, what else? Scrolling through this blog post here. So okay, today, major event in the astrological story of 2020. And we're on the other side of it, right? The totality was about 90 minutes ago, 75 minutes ago, and it pops. And so personally, I'm continuing to fast and pray and sort of be in this ceremonial zone for the next 12 hours. So 12 hours before, 12 hours after is the approach. But I feel tremendous relief having sort of been through the height of it. It's incredible to feel the other side, and so just gonna stay focused and stay quiet, keep to myself, be in this meditative, prayerful zone, and honor the shift in energy that way. And really, like, what I'm looking for at this point is, okay, what am I activating for the next 6 months until the next eclipse? And this eclipse is likely to reverberate further than that. And so in the newsletters, one of the things I've been saying is, don't start anything new this weekend. Like in the 10 days before a solar eclipse, you don't want to start anything new because the energy of it will burst with the eclipse. Now that the eclipse has burst, there are waves that you can surf. So now is actually an auspicious time to start things. If you've got a project, if you've got some activism, if you want to take some action in the world, now is actually a really good time to do it. Right in the aftermath of an eclipse is when you want to, again, like, this bubble has burst, it's created waves in the pond, now surf those waves. So yeah, get going, start now. And there's another big event coming up next week. And this is the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. Now, this is getting more attention than most astrological events ever do, and rightfully so. This is a very rare thing that, so we'll talk about the different measurements of it. In the comments there, tell me if you got a project you're gonna start, or like what is your surfboard made of that you're gonna surf this wave with. I'm gonna put another log on the fire. Yes. Okay, let's look at here. So Garrett says, lots of people don't typically talk about astrology, talk about true. We should start something new until 10 days after. Chris said, what I was saying is the 10 days before a solar eclipse, basically not auspicious for anything. Basically good time to go on a Vipassana retreat or just lay low, be quiet, calm. But immediately afterwards, so from here on out, like this week is a really good time to initiate a project, and so the bubble has burst, and so it's created these waves in space and time, and so you can ride those waves, and it gives great momentum. Whereas anything started in the 10 days previous to now will have, the energy of it will have built up, sure, but then burst with the eclipse today. Let me know. I hope your connection could hear that this time. Okay. Yes. The Great Conjunction. Garrett is also noticing there's a bunch of media hype around it, lots of blog posts. In my blog post, I shared a video by another one of my teachers, Simon Chikoski. Amazing teacher. The two teachers I've talked about are just two of my favorite people in the world. I admire them so much. Freedom Cole, scienceoflight.net, and Simon Chikoski, dharmatypes.com, also spirittypes.com are two of his websites. Simon did a video about the Great Conjunction and talks about, hey Ross, good to see you, brother, and really described the quality of, is that Sierra or Molly on Cultivate Balance? Thanks for being here. Okay, so Saturn and Jupiter are going to cross paths. Now, this happens once every 20 years, technically. But as in astrology, planets are crossing paths all the time, right? But typically, like, they'll cross paths like this in the sky, right? So one planet's moving like this, another one goes like that. And we say, hey, Molly, nice to see you. The whole team is here. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, nice. We got Molly, we got Sierra, and Annie, who's probably still here. Great. Hey guys. Planets cross like this, right? And we say, oh yeah, they crossed paths. They're crossing in terms of latitude, and close enough. That happens with Saturn and Jupiter every 20 years. The last one was in the year 2000, and there was some chaos with that election, wasn't there? Yeah, a contended election. So the last time that hey Ross, that Saturn and Jupiter crossed in the sign of Capricorn, where they are right now, was in 1961, about a month after JFK was inaugurated. The time in between, in 1980, was right when Ronald Reagan was inaugurated. Now, just to point this out, JFK did not survive his first term. There was an assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. And George W. Bush and Al Gore in 2000 had that whole contested crazy election thing, right? And so we're now having this great conjunction and we see what's happening with this election, right? Where it's contested, and the indicator is that whoever gets inaugurated, and again, it should be Biden, but 2020 has taught us to not make any assumptions, hasn't it? So again, now is the time to get out there and do your activist work to make sure that the results you want to see in the world are going to happen. Hey, Lance. So anyway, the people who get inaugurated around a great conjunction tend to have trouble surviving their term. That's the historical correlation. I don't make predictions, just saying true things. Okay, that's all recent history though. And all this is Saturn and Jupiter crossing like this. The unique thing about this moment, next week, this is happening on the winter solstice, December 21st, is that in this case, Saturn and Jupiter are crossing like within 0.1 of a degree. They're going to be right on top of each other. And that has not happened since, it's the closest they've been since 1623, 400 years ago. That was just 14 years after Galileo created his first telescope. So that's the closest they've been, but it's the closest observable conjunction since 1224. That's 800 years ago. So these are epic scales of time, right? And there's this nice synchronicity, right? It's like 800 years ago, 400 years ago. It's like right in these nice alignments, these 20-year cycles that build up. 20 squared is 400, isn't it? And so yeah, epic times that we're living in. So the thing that Simon talks about in his awesome video that I encourage you to watch because he is a world-renowned expert. So this is a planetary war. When planets get this close in the sky, there's something called a planetary war that happens. And I learned something new, that I was under the impression that we determine the winner of a planetary war by looking at dignity, right? And dignity is a concept in Vedic astrology of like who's stronger, basically, right? So in this case, like Saturn is in his own sign of Capricorn, whereas Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn. So Jupiter's at his weakest, Saturn's at home. It's like, Jupiter has been traveling all day and is, haggard, stumbling up to the door, whereas Saturn's like, been at home all day smoking his pipe by the fire. And so who's more powerful? Who's in charge in that situation? Well, it's clearly Saturn, right? So I've been thinking that Saturn is sort of winning this war. However, what Simon says is that that's not how we measure the winner of a planetary war. It's much more direct than that. We look into the sky. We look and see, first of all, which planet is brighter, which literally is more powerful in the sky. And in this case, it's clearly Jupiter. Jupiter is often one of the brightest planets in the sky after Venus. And it's the largest planet in the solar system. Jupiter is a force to be reckoned with in the sky there. Whereas Saturn is the most distant and is often quite hard to see. And so on that level, Saturn loses most planetary wars because it's just not that bright. The other measurement is which one is higher in the sky. And just in terms of that longitude, which one is above the other, and that's the dominant position. And so in that case, it just barely, but in that case, that is Jupiter as well. So on those two measurements, Jupiter is both brighter and higher, and so on that level, Jupiter wins the planetary war. So what that tells me is that there's a pretty even battle going on, right? Saturn's in good dignity, Jupiter's debilitated, Jupiter is a guest in Saturn's home, and so Saturn's very powerful, but Jupiter is brighter and superior, and so there's a pretty even battle going on between these two, which is basically the expansive and the contractive force, right? Our inspiration and our limitations, and so there are sort of two sides to this that I see available to us. One is that our hopes, our dreams, our sense of inspiration, expansive, larger teachings, larger concepts get squished and squashed by and stressed out by Saturn, and basically lose all hope because Saturn is stressing us out and we're in quarantine and can't leave and there's all these restrictions, right? That's one possibility. It's one approach. The other would be, with Jupiter staying strong enough to resist some of that sort of collapsing energy of Saturn, would be that our inspiration gets focused. So instead of this sort of airy-fairy, dreamy, like, oh, we're all one and it's beautiful, and these sort of like flimsy New Age, dreamy sort of thing. I don't know who Love Yourself Lifestyle is. Send me a note and we'll consider you joining the live video. Yeah. So okay, these sort of flimsy new age ideas like, oh, it's all one, it's all nice, like doesn't often get like a practical application, right? Which is what Saturn and Capricorn really wants. Doesn't care about the concepts, like how are you living? What are you actually doing? What is the activity, the practical application of whatever you believe in? And so there's this opportunity to take these big, beautiful concepts, which are worthy, which are true and noble and valid, and put them into practice, right? So instead of, when you're, it's basically time to get over the spiritual bypassing and do the practical work, and really, rubber to the road, walking your talk, as Waylon Lewis would say. So, that's the opportunity, I think, and so that's going to feel like pressure. That might feel like stress, especially for those of us who have been just, getting by on truisms and Rumi quotes and like, oh, I'm really suffering inside, so I'm going to watch The Secret one more time, and that'll make me feel better. It'll be a little Band-Aid, right? The opportunity here is to do better, to actually put your beliefs into practice. And again, that may feel stressful. That's going to be hard. That's sort of like, Garrett, it's sort of like what your teacher was talking to you about yesterday, right? Where it's like, he wasn't negating you at all, but he was challenging you. It's like, okay, like you've got all the things, now do it, right? You don't, there's no excuses anymore. There's no like all the theorizing, all the beautiful philosophy, which Jupiter gets caught up. Like Jupiter also rules Pisces, right? The daydreamer, the mystic, the poet. Like, oh yeah, that's so nice, right? And there's a role for that. That's an appropriate aspect of our beings. And there's more, right? And so to have all the theory, all the beautiful ideas is nice, but what are you doing about it? That's what this great conjunction is all about. And of course, depending on where this is happening in your individual chart, it's going to happen in a different area of life. For me, it's my 9th house. So that is specifically about my spiritual practices, my spiritual teachings, my connection to my teachers, my connection to the sources of wisdom, that area of, like what are the capital T truths that transcend all the changes happening on the worldly plane. So I'm very focused these days about practical application of my spirituality. And of course, like for Taurus people, the 9th house is Capricorn. So typically there's an interest in practical applications of spirituality, right? Taurus people tend not that interested in the great beautiful philosophies, like what do we do about it? What's the practical application? So that's a general focus, but amplified right now for sure. Yeah. Okay. Foot solo in the house. Okay, so we talked about the planetary war, talked about the eclipse. Yeah, Garrett, you're welcome. You're welcome. Love you too, brother. What else wants to be said? What else? Tell him. Hey, Carl. Hey, big guy. How you feeling? All right. So there's a couple friends in here. The plan a year ago was that we would be in Patagonia right now. There's a whole bunch of us that were at the Great American Eclipse Festival in Oregon in 2017, and we were planning to go to Patagonia to be at this next incarnation of it, but obviously we're not there. And okay, Carl, you're in Mexico. That's almost the same thing. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. And so, yeah, I'm actually glad that Eclipse Festival was one of the most hectic experiences of my life. And of course, like, again, if you think about everything we've talked about today about like what is happening in the 10 days before an eclipse and all the energies, like it's chaotic energy around an eclipse, and it's like everybody's tripping, whether they're tripping or not. And it's just crazy. So you're trying to get, tens of thousands of people into a festival ground and get everything organized. Like everything went wrong. The technology, trying to get people checked in. Oh yeah, that's where we met. I feel like it's our friend-versity. Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, I like that. Cheers. Okay, so one of the things I do want to mention is the role that Mars is playing in all this. Mars, the red planet, the warrior, the fierce one within us, the one who is willing to fight and die for principles. And really, like, Mars is the one who wants to fight for survival. But in a more elevated way, its true purpose is to fight for what is right. That's the sort of best expression of Mars. And so Mars rules the sign of Scorpio, where this eclipse just took place. So there is this sort of like rebellious or aggressive edge to this eclipse, and hopefully we can translate that energy into courage, right? Mars is our source of strength and courage. Really, Mars's true purpose is to destroy that which we perceive as making us weak, and to have the courage to go about doing that. And so destroy is sort of rough. Like, especially when we're doing shadow work, we don't really want to destroy the shadow. That's not really an option. The Instagram channel Man Talk, I think it's Man Talk, posted a thing today about like, you don't destroy the shadow. You're not trying to do battle with the shadow. That's not how it works. You're trying to integrate the shadow, trying to welcome it and integrate it into the wholeness of your being. So in Scorpio is the feminine internalized expression of Mars. And so it's the emotional warrior, the one who has the courage to go to the depths of the psyche and look at the pieces of ourselves that aren't very comfortable, but are necessary to look at if we're going to integrate and be the whole, healthy, holy beings that we are. So Mars gives us, my mom's name is Margaret, by the way, taking that as a Freudian slip. Mars gives us the courage to do that work. And so there's a little bit of that aggressive edge to this eclipse and this internal work. And 2 days after this great conjunction, on December 23rd, Mars goes from Pisces, this sort of, again, poetic, metaphysical, philosophical place, into its own sign of Aries. And this is, again, crossing a Gandanta point between a water sign and a fire sign. There's this joint where big shifts happen, right? From Pisces to Aries is a very, very different energy, right? It's from this very abstract place and this very like spontaneous and impulsive, and like Aries is where we sort of burst into existence, and it's like, boom, I'm here, yeah. And there's this very like it's like restless sort of quality and enthusiasm and fiery. It's like a spark plug sparking off this, that. And so Mars is going to be there. So it brings a lot of power to that area of life and sends a lot of our energy. And it's this much more outgoing, active quality. Whereas for the past, like 3 or 4 months, Mars has been in Pisces. And by the way, Mars has been doing this dance between Pisces and Aries all year long. Started out in Pisces, went into Aries for a while, retrograded back out, and has now been in Pisces again. And now at the end of the year is going back into Aries. And we can track that. When Mars was in Aries was when we saw most, the sort of the height of the protesting in the streets. And now that it's getting close again, it's on its way back, it's in that transitional zone already. There's a bunch of stuff going on in Portland and in Olympia, Washington, and this sort of like fiery, let's get out in the streets and burn it down energy is with us. And so the question is, with what level of intelligence are we applying that energy? So sure, impulse, passion, power, explosions, really powerful forces, right? And can do the work that makes the change we want to see in the world, right? Lots of little explosions in a car engine with a proper container applied intelligently through its proper channels can drive us across the country, can do lots of work, right? Can haul big loads, can move people around. That is useful work. And when we have that power controlled and focused. Garrett's got to run. You're welcome, my brother. Talk to you soon. Now, the danger happens when something breaks and that power is not flowing through its proper channels, and then you end up on the side of the road with an exploded engine, right? Or you get burnt out. You got all this passion, inspiration, and you stay up all night working on it, and then you can't do anything for 3 days. That's the sort of impulsive, explosive energy of Mars that, if you could have a keg full of gunpowder that can shoot a whole bunch of single bullets, thousands of them, or you can have one big explosion. And that's sort of, again, depending on how you want to apply that energy. And I'm sorry for all the sort of war and violent metaphors, but if we're talking about Mars, that's the area of life that is involved. So that shift is happening on the 23rd. So yeah, again, I'm just sort of scrolling through this blog that I posted yesterday, vedadave.com/library. It's the top thing after the New Moon newsletter archive. And there's a whole bunch. I got suggestions in here, and I'm really just talking through some of the high points. And I think that's about what I want to say. We've been here for almost an hour now. I'm happy to hang out. Instagram will kick me off in about 5 minutes. But if you guys have stuff you want to talk about, let me know what's happening with you. Tell me how this eclipse has impacted you. Tell me what you're feeling. It's nice to see so many of you here. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves. Hey. Good to see you, Sierra. Carl feels outside of his body. Yeah, what, an eclipse. Love you, Molly. Yeah, throw the salsa away. So this is a thing. Well, salsa, that's a tricky one. Did you make the salsa yourself? Because one of the indicators with eclipses is that any prepared food that was made before the eclipse, once the eclipse happens, again, all the prana it contains sort of burst with the eclipse, and so it's considered to have lost its life force and is now tamasic, and so with something like salsa, I don't know. I guess it depends how much of it, because I'm also very practical about these things. where, like, for example, the Ayurvedic tradition generally says don't eat leftover food. And those instructions were written before refrigeration, right? And so, like, there's a certain, like, certain practical quality where it's like, hey, like, sure, like, you don't want to eat food that's been sitting around for more than a week because it loses its freshness, it loses that energy. And there's nothing wrong with making food, putting it in the fridge, and eating it a day or a couple days later, right? Like, that, it's part of life, and we don't want to squander the resources, right? We want to honor the energy that comes through the food and make the most of it. So you can make your own decision. If you are going to eat it, I would bless it up and put your good juju into it. And one thing you could do would be to add some fresh ingredients. So if you've got some cilantro, or, you know, some new spices, or you know, some fresh tomato, something like that, sort of liven it up again. So give it your best blessing and add some fresh ingredients to give it that new life, and that'll revive it. But yeah, I think again, you use your own discernment, get your sense of the energy of it. Yeah. Hey, Matt Hemi. How's it going? Talking about eclipse energy here. Wonder if you felt it. Yeah, just finishing up, I think. It's good to see everybody. And this recording will, of course, be on my Instagram TV. I'll probably post a video of it, or the recording of it, to the blog as well. So I hope you all stay safe and happy and healthy, and take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you on the other side. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. Why won't it let me close it? Good to see you too, Ross. Oh, my phone is being very funny right now. I'm gonna edit this part out.